Talking Points. You're looking live at a former President Donald Trump rally in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the biggest battleground on the map.
Plus, as seen on TV, voters flooded with political ads.
The division is just incredible.
Plus, as I mentioned, as seen on TV, voters flooded with political ads here in one of the most expensive House races in the nation.
I don't really laugh like that, do I? A little bit.
And live from New York, the Vice President makes a surprise stop on SNL, how she's leaning on star power in the final countdown. This Election Eve edition of Talking Points starts right now.
Closing arguments on the campaign trail as the candidates for president and vice president crisscross the country. Welcome into Talking Points. I'm Jake Morel.
And I'm Luke Radel. Right now, we're looking at a rally happening in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Vice President Kamala Harris is spending her entire day in Pennsylvania, Jake, vying for its 19 electoral votes. While former President Donald Trump started this morning in Raleigh, North Carolina, and made 2 stops of his own in PA, including one right now. And then he'll end his third and possibly final campaign tonight in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Trump ended his 2016 and 2020 campaigns in Grand Rapids. He's hoping to end this race like 2016 and not like 2020, Luke.
For sure.
That would be good for Trump.
Absolutely, and we're looking now live at that rally crowd in Pittsburgh. We're expecting tonight for former Fox News and NBC News host Megyn Kelly to speak and endorse Trump. She's the one who asked that infamous debate question off the top about former President Trump's treatment of women. Interesting to see her tonight rallying in his favor. She's been critical of Trump for lack of support among women, especially after that Madison Square Garden rally, Jake. Really interesting to see that.
Yeah, really interesting to see her. You know, we've seen so many of these talking heads coming out and supporting Trump. A lot of people that are in the homes of these voters constantly. A lot of people that have done stuff like Megyn Kelly, where she anchored the Today Show, but has also been on Fox and on a lot of different shows. But we've talked a lot about the polls in this race. But tonight, as voters get ready to go to the polls tomorrow, we want to talk about the stakes of this election. Let's start with Peter Berry, who's following Trump's plans for a second term. Peter, what would a second Trump administration look like?
So this is a whole different world for Trump. He never imagined in a million years that he would be a 34-count felon as he was convicted back in May of 2024. But he's more focused on personal liberty here to try and take the cases off his plate, as there's several other charges and 3 other cases that he has to tackle. He's also talking about pardoning Jan 6ers, calling them patriots. He's also pulling funding from Ukraine, and he's also saying that that war will be settled with a phone call. But he's also testing out some policies such as taking huge tariffs on imported goods to try and boost manufacturing within the U.S. And he's also talking about no tax on Social Security and also talking about other policies such as this one.
We will cut taxes for working families as part of our tax cuts that I've announced, and there will be no taxes on tips. No taxes on tips.
Really interesting to see what Donald Trump's plans would be for a second term in office. But Ethan, let's bring you in here because the Democratic ticket right now is Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. How would a Harris administration differ from the Biden administration, which she's been a part of for the past 4 years?
Yeah, so Vice President Harris has really been closing on a message of unity and laying out what her main policy goals would be if she were to win the election tomorrow. And she's been laying it out, really laid it out clearly in an ad that she ran yesterday. Take a listen.
Throughout this campaign, I've seen the best of America, and I've seen what is holding you back and weighing you down. High costs, fundamental rights taken away, and politics that have driven fear and division. You deserve better. As president, I'll bring a new generation of leadership. I'll take on price gouging and bring down the cost of groceries and housing and prescriptions. I'll fight for your freedom to make your own choices, and I will protect your health care and your benefits, not take them away.
Yeah, it's interesting. She laid out a lot of policies there, including cutting costs on housing. She has proposed a $25,000 down payments to help with people trying to purchase houses, and $3 million new housing units to be built during her presidency. She also wants to lower prescription prices, capping prescription drug prices at $3,500 for seniors.
It's so interesting to see that final ad. We've seen our TVs absolutely flooded with them. We'll have a little bit more on that later in the show. But Peter, I want to bring you back in. We've had 9 years of Trump saying the same stuff. What wouldn't change if he gets back into office?
Well, he's back to his old Trump talking points here. He's talking about repealing Obamacare, which 50 million people are on. So he's talking about how he has concepts of a plan during the debate. He's also talking about how Biden and Harris destroy the border, and he's going to be the guy to fix it. But here's what he said at a Green Bay rally just the other day.
November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. And on day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history.
The congressional majority is also at stake, which could really determine which candidate will be effective or ineffective during their election cycle.
Yeah, super quickly, Ethan, what will Harris do on immigration?
Yeah, Harris wants to bring back that bipartisan immigration deal that was killed by Trump in the Senate a few months ago, bring 1,500 new border agents and asylum reform.
Ethan, Peter, thank you so much. Really appreciate hearing about the stakes.
Guys, coming up on Talking Points, our 7th and final Talking Points toss-up state will take you to the Sin City right after this. No gambling, though.
It's a beautiful day out here. Sunny today with light breezes, giving way to clouds in the afternoon. We could see some light precipitation to moderate precipitation later on, followed by powerful storm-like conditions. 90 miles per hour winds are expected. Authorities are asking everyone, stay indoors. Come on, that's it. Let's go.
If you're buzzed and doing this, to make yourself feel okay to drive,
ZWX.
you're not okay to drive.
YGKLVW. Regular you.
Welcome back into Talking Points. Vice President Harris is relying on star power in the closing hours of this campaign, bringing out some big celebrity supporters.
And joining us now to discuss is our election night senior analyst, Ilana Epstein. Hi, Ilana. I understand there's a massive star-studded event happening right now for the Harris campaign.
There is, but it's not just in one place. It's actually all over the country, and I actually want to quickly go through where all of this is taking place. So in Atlanta, Georgia, tonight, 2 Chainz and Keisha Cole are performing. In Phoenix, Arizona, La Original Banda El Limon is performing. 6 p.m. in Detroit, Michigan, Tim and Gwen Waltz are speaking, and Bon Jovi and the War and Treaty are performing. In Raleigh, North Carolina, Fantasia, Remy Wolf, Sugarland, they're performing. 7 p.m. in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Tim and Gwen are going to head over there and speak, and Eric Benet will be performing. In Pittsburgh, Harris will be speaking. D-Nice, Katy Perry, and Andra Day will be performing. In Philadelphia, Harris will be speaking there as well. So will Oprah, and then Lady Gaga, Ricky Martin, Fat Joe, Jasmine Sullivan, they'll be performing as well. And then if we go over to Vegas, Eva Longoria, Christina Aguilera, Sophie Tucker, they'll be performing. So there's a lot going on.
A lot of celebs coming out for
Yeah.
Kamala compared to like Kid Rock for Trump.
Yeah,
So
Kid
there's
Rock.
like a
Hey,
bit of
Hulk
an
Hogan,
imbalance
remember
there.
that. But and a comedian, of course. Remember that guy.
We do.
But that's quite a list. And speaking of celebrities, over the weekend she made a stop in New York. Not a typical swing state, but she was there to be on SNL.
She was. You know, it was very interesting because this was announced pretty soon before the show, and I think a lot of people were surprised. I think both Harris and Trump have been doing a lot of non-traditional campaigning with these podcasts that they've been on, but really targeting those Gen Z voters, and I know Bella Galan and I will be talking about that tomorrow. But yeah, Maya Rudolph, she's been playing Kamala throughout the whole season. I think a lot of people were very interested. So the two of them in the cold open at the end of it did like a looking at each other through the mirror type of segment type thing, and it was very funny. So let's take a look.
The American people want to stop the chaos
And end the drama.
with a cool new stepmamala. Kick back in our pajamas and watch a rom-kamala.
Like Legally Blondula.
And start decorating for Christmas. Fa la 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 la. Because what do we always say? Keep Kamala and carry on a la.
Yeah, that's almost at 10 million views. So a lot of people are viewing it, but the response has been pretty interesting. Last night during NBC coverage of NASCAR, viewers noticed a new Trump ad, and sources say this was to give the two candidates equal time. FCC Commissioner Brandon Carr, he said, quote, "This is a clear and blatant effort to evade the FCC's equal time rule. The purpose of the rule is to avoid exactly this type of biased and partisan conduct. A licensed broadcaster using the public airwaves to exert its influence for one candidate on the eve of an election, unless the broadcaster offered equal time to other qualifying campaigns." So Carr, he claims that this violates the equal time rule.
And that was why NBC quickly put Trump in that NASCAR and that NFL coverage last night. Really interesting to see that. Ilana, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. That countdown clock is getting closer and closer.
Very excited.
I'm looking forward to it.
Very
Thank
excited.
you so much. Well, over the weekend, both Harris and Trump made a final swing through the so-called Sun Belt out on the West Coast. The candidates are placing their bets on a swing state with just 6 electoral votes. Our Ben Bascuk has this week's Talking Points toss-up state, Nevada. Hey, Ben.
Yeah, hey Luke, if Trump can't flip at least one of those blue wall states we've talked so much about, he'll have to go hunting in the Sun Belt. Now, the latest New York Times Siena College poll shows Vice President Kamala Harris with a slight edge over former President Donald Trump in Nevada. If we take a look at those numbers, the poll reports Harris at 47% and Trump at 44%, with economic concerns dominating voter priorities. 40% identifying the economy as their top issue, with housing affordability and immigration following closely behind in that scope. Now, we talked about celebrity endorsements. Ilana did a great job on that. Well, Jennifer Lopez joined Harris on the campaign trail in Las Vegas this weekend. She emphasized how a Harris administration would help immigrant families and the middle class.
I am the daughter of Guadalupe Rodriguez and David Lopez, a proud daughter and son of Puerto Rico. You can't even spell American without Rican. I know as President of the United States, Kamala will fight for our freedom, the freedom of immigrants and immigrant families to chase the American dream, the freedom of workers to afford housing, education, food, and life's essentials, and the freedom of women to choose what we do with our bodies.
Yeah, we know she's had some problems selling out stadiums in the past for her concerts, but obviously, no problem there in Vegas.
Yeah, Harris is able to sell them out. Trump actually was having some crowd trouble today, too.
He was having some crowd trouble. Just another one on the list of celebrities that we were just talking about with Ilana.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Well, if we take a look, we talked about the presidential a little bit, take a look at the Senate race in Nevada. Rosen is up around 4% there, 49% Rosen, Brown 45%. She is the incumbent senator coming in. She raised a fortune going into this race and used a lot of that on attack heads against Brown, specifically when it comes to abortion. There's an issue on the ballot right now to enshrine abortion in the state constitution, and that's really been resonating amongst voters in the Sun Belt, in the Midwest. We've seen Democrats campaign on that relentlessly through the past season here.
And we talked about this last week with our co-election night anchor, Andy, about how this is a really tough Senate map for Democrats. They're defending a lot of seats like Jackie Rosen in Nevada. It would be interesting to see if they're able to hold on to that Senate majority and accomplish all those policies that Harris has been talking about, those Medicare home health care policies and codifying Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, and see if that ballot measure helps Democrats. I think it's going to be interesting to kind of take a look at a few of the states that have both the ballot measure, the Senate race, and of course the presidential race, and see if that ballot measure is going to boost Democrats or if they're going to vote separately on it. Hard to imagine that they would, but you would think that it would help.
Right, 100%. Well, we have a gold standard in Nevada, and that's John Ralston. What has John Ralston come out and said today? He does this prediction before the election, right? What is he predicting?
Yeah, so his crystal ball has been a little foggy, he said, the past couple of weeks, but now it's cleared up here. He is the editor-in-chief of the Nevada Independent. He correctly predicted in 2016, 2020, 22 governor race, but now he's saying Harris, his prediction is 48.5%, Trump at 48.2%. So Harris crawling ahead there in the state of Nevada.
Close.
close margins. I think all around. I think all these polls we see, and I think a lot of people are concerned about that because they see how close these are, and they say, this is a nail-biter. We don't know who the result is at the end of the day.
So interesting, too, because every swing state is almost within the margin of error. That one, the prediction, within the margin of error, but the New York Times Siena College poll had Harris just outside of it, and she was just outside of it in Nevada. Trump was just outside of it in Arizona. Everything else, a total toss-up.
And there are questions about whether Trump's promises that we heard about from Peter earlier about no tax on tips have been effective with a lot of those working-class voters in Las Vegas. People who were part of the Harry Reid machine and got out and voted for Democrats in the past might be flipping to vote for Trump this time around.
Yeah, I think Vegas, specifically in Nevada, I mean, we see economic issues cited as a top priority. They got hit a lot harder than other states when it came to COVID. A lot of blue-collar workers, a lot of tipped workers, too. So, I mean, depending on how that resonates with voters, maybe it was the Sphere, the Las Vegas Sphere that Harris did that advertisement on. Maybe that's why she's crawling ahead here in the
That was
polls,
next level. That was 2024 advertising right there.
It was pretty
go.
cool.
Yeah.
It was a little scary. Alrighty, well, coming up for us, thank you, Ben. Control of Congress comes down to New York State, my home state. We're at the map tracking the tight races with our Drew Matyasik. Stay with us.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early. You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
You've messed up your son's haircut.
Mom?
Do you A, try to fix it?
Like it never happened.
B, work with what you got? Or C, show solidarity?
Thank you, babe. As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Got a quarter?
I want you to listen to what House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, what he told Luke Radel, a student from Syracuse, when he was asked, will he try to repeal the CHIPS Act if they keep that majority? Obviously, the CHIPS Act, for those who don't know, bipartisan law, encourages companies to make more semiconductor chips here in the U.S. And I should note, timely for this soundbite you're about to hear, happens to be bringing $100 billion worth of investment to the Syracuse area.
The former president has said that he doesn't support the CHIPS and Science Act. You voted against it. If you have a Republican majority in Congress and Trump in the White House, will you guys try to repeal that law?
I expect that we probably will, but we haven't developed that part of the agenda yet. We got to get over the election first, and that's why we're so happy to be in New York's 22nd.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is backtracking after saying the GOP probably will repeal the CHIPS and Science Act. The law provides incentives for microchip companies to make their products in America, including Micron, right here in the Syracuse area. Johnson has since said that he misheard that question from my very own co-anchor, Luke Radel. Luke, what has the reaction been like over the weekend?
It's been a lot of reaction. The vice president started her day on Saturday talking about that clip of Mike Johnson, and I want to talk a little bit about that clarification, if you will, from Mike Johnson, because, I mean, you've heard me talk a lot. We yap a lot on this show. We talk quite a bit. Do the words repeal and reform sound very similar coming out of my mouth?
Nope.
No?
No,
not the slightest. That was what, so the Speaker's office, instead of just saying, hey, look, I messed up the answer, I shouldn't have said that, or I don't feel that way anymore, maybe he changed his mind. No, he said that I misheard the question when I was standing about 4 feet away from him. It's almost like some House Republicans don't tell the truth about obvious reality. I don't know. Well, I'm just saying. I'm observing things.
It looks like there's a huge disconnect between the Republican Party at the top and here at the local level, right? We have Brandon Williams, who has come out in support of the Micron project. We have Ryan McMahon, who worked to bring the Micron project here. Yep. Republican elected officials. And then we have Trump on Joe Rogan saying that he doesn't like the CHIPS Act. And then Johnson saying it without realizing that he's in a place where it's so important to the future of the local economy.
I think there's that classic Republican thing, right, of not wanting too much government spending or government involvement in the economy. But if it's helping your district and your community, then Heck yeah, you want the involvement. Heck yeah, you want the funding. Heck yeah, you want the largest private investment in American history.
And bringing manufacturing not only right here to Central New York, but to the United States. Hasn't Trump been talking about doing that on the campaign trail the whole time?
That's the idea. So we'll see what actually happens in New York's 22nd Congressional District. Right now, it's about Democrat John Mannion's race to lose in this race, and it doesn't help for Brandon Williams to be campaigning with someone like Mike Johnson who says things like that. But there are a lot of other competitive races outside of Syracuse, and I'm going to talk about those right now with Drew Matyasik. We're going to walk over to our magic map, Jake. I'll be back, don't worry. I'm here with Drew Matyasik. Drew, another New York hometown boy, thank you so much for talking to me about these fantastic swing district races that we have all over the state. And this state, this is 2022's map, this is what flipped the House red the last time around.
Oh, absolutely, and it can flip the House control back to the Democrats this year around because all the Democrats need are 4 House races, a net gain of 4 races, and there's way more than 4 races that are competitive in New York. You have the 22nd, 19th, 17th.
Where do you want to start, Drew? Where should we go first?
Let's go south to north. Let's start in New York's 1st congressional district. Nick LaLota and John Avlon, former CNN reporter John Avlon. Democrats put a good nominee with that. But Republicans have been controlling this part of Long Island for years now.
Let's look at what it looked like in 2022. That was LaLota 55-44 against his Democratic candidate the last time around. Can John Avlon make up those numbers this time?
It's going to be pretty tough considering, especially historically, looking at New York's 1st congressional district. Lee Zeldin put up pretty much identical numbers in this area.
Shall we?
Let's check it out.
Lee Zeldin, same thing, 10-point margin on Long Island. Republicans tend to do pretty well there. Let's jump down a little further down Long Island to the 4th district with Anthony D'Esposito. This was his margin last time around, a little bit closer in the 4th district.
Absolutely, and this is what we thought it was going to be, and it still might be coming tomorrow, but Anthony D'Esposito had a little bit of a scandal hit him a few months ago with a little bit of an affair he had. And now Laura Gillen, a little bit of an affair, just a tiny one. And now Laura Gillen, a New York Times Siena poll, has her up 12 points.
It's a rematch of 2 years ago. It's a rematch of 2 years ago, and so we'll have to see what happens there. Let's move a little bit further north, up into the Hudson Valley with Mike Lawler. This was an upset win. He was not expected to win here in the 17th district. Is he expected to win this time?
Well, you know, the Cook PVI here is pretty much identical to New York's 22nd. It favors Democrats a lot, but Mondaire Jones is not popular. He was in Congress before. He's out now. Now he's facing Mike Lawler. Mike Lawler up in the polls. They don't really like Mondaire Jones, not the greatest candidate that the Democrats could have put forward.
Yeah, let's take a look. 1 district north in the 18th district. Pat Ryan, the only Democrat to hold on as a freshman in that wave year in 2022. Democrats fell all across the board. Pat Ryan was the one to hold on, but this time he's facing someone who ran for lieutenant governor the last time, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the thing with Pat Ryan is the polls are just showing it's a little too much his race and that Allison Esposito's falling behind. She's hit him hard on immigration. That's what her campaign's been focused on. Illegal immigrants, the border, everything. But it's not so much working as well as Lawler's attack on Mondaire Jones is working on similar issues, just a little bit south.
Let's look at the 2022 results there when he was running against Colin Schmidt the last time around. Super close, but he did pull it off. Do you think it'll be that close this time around, or has he kind of boosted his popularity in that district?
I think he has boosted his popularity, a little bit more name recognition. I do think he's going to be Esposito by more than this margin, but I don't think it's going to be, you know, a huge difference from this result.
He's been all over MSNBC. I've seen him all the time. All right, we got one more rematch. One more district to talk about in the 19th district, 1 north. Mark Molinaro facing off against Josh Riley. Look at how big this district is.
It's huge. And this is where most of the money from the DCCC and the Republicans has gone into. Millions upon millions of dollars into this race.
Most expensive House race in the country, not even just in the state.
And 538 has this as pretty much Riley's race by 53-47. This is the biggest toss-up race, in my opinion, in the country, maybe besides Alaska and, you know, going out west a little bit more. But this is the one to watch tomorrow. This was tight last year. It's going to be tight this year.
Well, to get a little wonky, so when they're running those TV ads, the reason why it's so expensive is because you have the Binghamton media market they have to spend there. You have some of the New York media market, some of the Albany media market, and then the Syracuse media market's also included. That's why we've been seeing all those ads on our TVs out here for Mark Molinaro and Josh Riley. It will be really interesting to see if this rematch goes the same direction the last time, super duper close, less than 2 points there, or if it goes for Josh Riley this time around.
Absolutely.
Drew, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. Jake, back over to you.
So interesting that the House will be decided right in our backyard. Fellas, thank you. Well, the clock is ticking. You can see it down there in the corner. Election day is just hours away. With the opening of the polls comes the end of most political ads. But the data shows that most Americans will be happy to see them go.
You've seen them nonstop for months.
While corporations are gouging families, Trump is focused on giving them tax cuts.
They've had 3.5 years to fix the border.
Ad Impact reports more than $2.5 billion were spent on presidential political ads this year, while the New York Times reports one political action committee has commissioned 655 ads since the vice president became the Democratic nominee. Here, Pennsylvania residents are increasingly frustrated with the tone of ads.
It's just constant, and it's not what I can do, it's what they can't do, which I don't like that.
We want to know what policies are going to happen. As you look at even the debates, it's just pointing fingers, and we're not accomplishing anything with these conversations.
The data says they're not wrong. A study by the Election Graph Project, released last month, says negative ads on Facebook and Instagram surged after the July assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. The voters we spoke to say with the negative tone comes a lack of trust for the content of ads.
They're just pulling bits and pieces of the other person or what's been said or spinning in a certain way. And so though there might be a tiny grain of truth to it, it's definitely being spun in a really politicized way.
So it's not like when I was younger. It's not like, I mean, there's always been candidates coming up with things on the other side and digging stuff up, but it just seems a lot nastier.
Dylan Brendel, thank you. When we come back, is Iowa a swing state? We'll show you the surprising poll in 90 seconds. Stay with us.
Come on, it's not that hard.
My big man fingers are having a problem with these little tiny buttons.
Whoa, watch it there. Your blood pressure's gonna go through the roof.
Tell me about it. I'm trying to learn how to get it down. Instead, it keeps going up.
High blood pressure can increase the risk for heart attack or stroke. Learn how to keep yours at a healthy range.
Ever hear a voice command? Just say text barbershop to 97779.
That's not what I said.
Just give me that. Now my blood pressure's up.
Looking for these? You drive buzzed. It could be one very expensive ride.
First, you gotta make bail. Then pay me to get your car back.
Your insurance premiums will go through the roof.
And my legal fees just keep adding up. All told, it could end up costing you $10,000.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Talking Points. Jake Morel, do you recognize this face?
I do recognize that face,
I
Luke.
feel like this face is going to end up, like, you know how like Catholic moms in the 60s would have a picture of JFK on the wall? I feel like if Kamala Harris wins this election and wins the state of Iowa, J.Ann Seltzer might be the picture on the wall.
I mean, that's pretty high praise, but yeah,
Potentially.
Sure. Let's go with
Potentially.
it.
We'll see what happens. And so we're going to talk about the legendary Iowa Seltzer poll from this woman, J.Ann Seltzer. But to do it, we're going to drink some seltzer, S-E-T-L. How do I spell seltzer? I don't know. It's different from the spelling of the name. But Peter, thank you very much.
We give this kid
got some
way,
LaCroix here.
way too much leeway.
You know, we got to talk about the seltzer poll.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, let's take a look at the seltzer poll. It's really important. It's really big. Here it is.
Wow, it's on fire.
It is on fire.
Like my
so
mouth.
The poll in Iowa, the final seltzer poll, has always been right. Almost always been right. Has Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump in a state that he has won by 8 points twice now.
Which should be a foregone conclusion for him every time.
And now it's looking more competitive. How is it looking more competitive, Jake? Now, just a few months ago, in June, when Joe Biden was on the ticket, do you remember Joe Biden? He used to be the Democratic nominee for president. He was down by 18 points in Iowa in the Seltzer poll from June of 2024. So Harris has made a lot of gains with women over the age of 65. Look at this, by a 2-to-1 margin, 63 to 28% in Iowa right now. So let's do a little what-if scenario. If Kamala Harris wins the state of Iowa, then she could potentially lose the important swing states of Georgia with its 16 electoral votes, North Carolina with its 16 electoral votes, and Pennsylvania, which we've been talking about all night. as long as she wins all the other swing states.
But I think the important point here is that when you look at that demographic of older white women, if she was winning by that much in Iowa, now, I know the other polls don't say it as much, but if she's winning by that much in Iowa with older white women, there's no reason that she won't win Pennsylvania, the Blue Wall, Arizona, Georgia, might I say, Blexus.
Ooh. We'll see
I know
what
that's
happens.
a big claim to make, but it could
We'll see
happen.
what happens.
And I think that's what's so interesting about this Seltzer poll. And that's all the time we have for you on this episode of Talking Points. Join us tomorrow for election night. It's going to be a good one.
Have a good one.